So now we're going to a handheld camera.
Oh, okay. Do we have any more questions? David, another one, go.
I had a question about journals in general in terms of the variety of them. There are some that seem to come out almost once a month, some other once a year, some come up when they get enough poems. Some seem to be close to, almost like a vanity press, whereas others seem to have a higher bar in terms of getting into them. And I was wondering what the scene was like then and how you would compare it to it now.
You want to take that as our resident small press expert?
Okay. Well, it's funny that you bring this up. I got to turn the camera on myself now. It's funny that you bring this up because I'm in the process of resurrecting my Lummox Journal as a yearly function, and the first issue is going to be bigger than this issue of Next, because I can't say no to poets. I've got 160 plus poets in it. Back then, I don't know. There were print journals. I do remember that. Then there still are print journals around, but mostly it's a question of finances. It's always a question of finances. I mean, the reason that Next folded was because they couldn't afford to put it out anymore. They couldn't get advertising.
That's right.
I ran Lummox Journal out of my pocket, and my premise was it has to pay for itself, or I can't afford to do it. And it paid for itself. It was paying for itself when I ran out of steam and said, okay, I can't do this anymore. I have to quit. And I stopped doing it. But it was still paying for itself because I sold it to subscribers. And that's how I did it. Murray did Next free, 10,000 copies a month.
It didn't start out that way.
No, it started out, well, the first issue was 500. The second issue was 1,000. And the third one was 5,000. And about 2 years in, we went to 10,000. And then I actually did follow his model. There's a year in there when it was subscription only. And they only had a print run of a couple hundred. But, which was the only year when I didn't lose money. But it just wasn't the same.
I know.
And I got talked into going back to the 10,000 and hit the wall pretty quickly after that. But there was correlating or independent of the coffee house scene. There was a very active small press scene in the 90s too.
Yes.
And a lot of that was labors of love. And a lot of them, were put out when they could get an issue together. That they, like Next, they all started with high dreams about what they would accomplish and very quickly ran into reality. But many of them kept on going as much as they could.
The Caffeine, of course, took advantage of the coffee houses too.
Right.
Just by virtue of its own name, that it went for a long time and had great distribution in the coffee houses, very high visibility, and it even had advertising. It was even a record company.
Well, it was like a real magazine.
Yeah.
Well, except for the graphics. The problem that many of us had with Caffeine was that you often could not read a poem or a prose piece in Caffeine because it would be in reverse type, sometimes on black, but sometimes it would not be in reverse type, and sometimes you could not read it because the background was the same color as the type.
Right.
There was the collective model of the old Beatitude, both its original version and its 70s revival, where an issue was published when they had collected enough money to put one out. So it came out irregularly, but when it did come out, it was very well distributed, and occasionally, because it was based in North Beach, Oriano from Cafe Trieste would put some money in. He was the owner there, and friends with many of the contributors often. Or they also had revolving editors. There were different editors of different issues, and sometimes Shug at City Lights, who was the silent owner of City Lights, not many people know that. They think it's all free and Getty, but it was actually Shug Morale who powered it for a number of years. And he would put some money into it from time to time. So those were like two major contributors who kept it going through the 70s. I think it appeared at least once a month in 75, and then after that maybe quarterly, and then maybe once a year, and faded away. But there was that collective way of financing your publication, but that was not a good way to keep it consistently there in front of the public.
Right.
And I have to say that nowadays, because of print-on-demand technology, I put out a Little Red book series for 60 titles over about an 11-year period. And, they were just like a quarter sheet of paper with but they look nice. I think it's a pretty respected series. And, but it costs me as much in terms of labor and materials and Xeroxing, because the price of Xeroxing went up, to do a Little Red book as it does for me to do a print-on-demand paperback now. So, it's more cost-effective to put out a 6x9 book with a 4-color cover. It also looks a lot nicer than a little chapbook with a red cover, So I think the print-on-demand is definitely an influence. And the print-on-demand is what's going to make this next issue of Lumix possible, because if I had to put together $1,500, $2,000 to print up, 100 copies or whatever, 200 copies, I'd never be able to do it in this economy. I can't even afford to buy another car.
Yeah. Well, this book is print on demand.
Yeah.
That when I need more copies, I contact my publisher. I PayPal him some money. He contacts the printer. 2 weeks later, I got a box of books on my front doorstep. And so I think he probably printed 500 as an initial press run.
Yeah.
But beyond that, you just print what you need.
Sure.
And it has enabled a number of small press publishers to be, if not financially successful, at least financially solvent.
Or at least prolific.
Word Palace Press, that's what they're doing with Word Palace Press with print on demand. And look at this guy just started this press earlier this year, and he's already cranking out like 8 or 9 titles already.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be very prolific with print on demand, because the technology doesn't require much in the way of setup, depending on who you work with.
Right.
And sometimes you have to work with the evil Death Star Amazon to get anything done. But life is a series of trade-offs anyway. So what the hell?
And by the way, Word Palace Press is reading here tomorrow night at 7:30.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to see some of you people in the audience.